Whereas epistemology is, broadly speaking, the philosophical theory of knowledge, its nature and scope, metaepistemology takes a step back. Anti-realism on a dividing line in metaepistemology broadly analogous to a familiar dividing line in metaethics between locally realist and anti-realist position. This section will discuss several prominent realist and anti-realist positions in metaepistemology, and, in some cases, we will. First, however, it will be useful to clarify how we are using this term. It is contentious word for a given subject matter realism vis-a-vis amounts to. In the epistemic case of interstellar, realism implies that attribution of every knowledge, justification, epistemic virtue, and epistemic vice are validated by how things stand in the world. Likewise, just as the metaphysical anti-realist is that moral claims have this kind of status, the metaepistemological anti-realists will deny the same without rule of two ways. Either or by denying that there are any epistemic facts, meta-epistemological, non-cognitivist errors fall into this category of anti-realist. Or, alternatively, metaepistemological anti-realists might grant that there are epistemic facts while denying that the obtaining. In what follow, we'll look first at metaepistemological realism, and then at a few versions of metaepistemological anti-realism. This means that, for the realist, when you say that you know that Paris is the capital of France, there is a fact of the matter. Either you do or you do not know this. And further, the obtaining of this fact is not simply down to a. Both Bokoshan and Kuno share a common kind of pro-realist argumentative strategy, which is to argue that metaepistemological anti-realism in one or more of its forms is implausible or incoherent, and thus that a realist position holds up better by contrast. Equal validity there are many radically different, yet equally valid, ways of knowing the world, with science being just one of them. Important to the version of metaepistemological realism that Bokoshan contra the description of absolutism. Favorably to constructivist and relativist anti-realism go beyond the anti-realist or beyond of minimal realist position described above. Kuno master argument is as follows: if moral facts do not exist, then epistemic facts do not exist. Epistemic fact exists to moral fact exist. If moral fact exists, then moral realism is true. Of special interest to Kuno on version of metaepistemological realism is the sense in which it, like Bokoshan, absolutism, capable of minimal realist commitment to countenancing means independent epistemic facts. For Kuno, metaepistemological realism of the sort he taketo be paradigmatic and analogous to metaphysical realism will also accept the following: epistemic facts are prescriptive, therein imply or indicate reasons for properly situated in regardless of where. Whereas Kuno and Bokoshan respective cases for metaepistemological realism are negative in that they rest principally on challenging the credentials of various forms of anti-realism. Fourthly, we can envision a kind of pragmatic justification of metaepistemological realism as a precondition for doing first-order epistemology. For example, as such a line of thought go, paradigmatic first-order debates in epistemology take for instance the decades-long debate between Richard Feldman and Alvin Goleman about whether epistemic internalism or externalism is correction of explicit defenses of anti-realist positions in metaepistemology are few and far between, at least compared with explicit defense of versions of versions of methodical anti-realists, non-relativical rationale drawn from metanormative theory and philosophy of lingua que also than epistemology. Versions of this thesis vary in their scope and commitment. One early and influential example of epistemic non-cognitivism, Hartley Field's non-cognitivism, Field hold that we should have a non-factualist attitude toward justification. It is a matter of policy rather than fact, and the question is only whether it is a good policy. It makes no sense to ask whether logic really is justifiable a priori. Anegil, Ayanobo, and similar vein. This is because, for Lynch, as a prerequisite of holding the non-cognitivist position, including a denial of epistemic value facts, one must disengage from any commitment to epistemic value, which is to take up a standpoint disengaged from epistemic value. But this, he maintains, is a standpoint we cannot take up while inquiring. In this respect, the incoherence of methodical non-cognitivism lies in its incompatibility with inquiry, while metaepistemological error, theory and non-cognitivism represent the most notable examples of meta-epistemological views that are anti-realistic of denying epistemic facts. There have been, throughout the history of epistemology, wide or here we discuss according to idealism, ideally of a Beckerian sort. Anything we know, because some mental state of affairs obtained, and this is because, for such an idealist there is no our mind. Empirical reality is internal to our minds. This view of course implies that truths we might know, and indeed, any epistemic fact will be trivially mind-dependent, given that part of what it is to be an idealist is to deny that there is a mind-independent objective reality. Importantly, this kind of heavyweight anti-realist position is distinct from, and not implied by, indirect realist views in the philosophy of perception. Indirect realism in the philosophy of perception is compatible with metaepistemological realism, while full-fledged idealism, although metaepistemological idealism, had not held much sway in epistemological circles, with the exception of perhaps with G. According to Bokoshan, the relativist should be understood as submitting the following epistemic relationist thesis. If a person says epistemic judomaisa arto hamu, for instance, such a view implies that an attribution such a gariro is epistemico justified in believing hereditary absolute true, given that it is absolutely true that gariro is gariro is epistemical to the gariro. But according to John McFarlane and Crispin Wright, once this point is appreciated, we set Bokoshan's characterization of epistemic relativism in a bit more detail for the New Age relativist about knowledge ascriptions. When S asserts that X knows there is a ban, the proposition S expresses with this assertion gets a truth value on the relativist. Semantic for knows only once the epistemic standard of the assessor is specified of the list. This is an epistemic standard for an individual who is assessing S attribution of knowledge. Crucially, without the specification of an assessor's tendonoric attribution, Sex claimed that X knows there is a bond lacks a truth value in much that some ways error. Another point for clarification here. Say entry on realism, section on new relativism for further details. Is that the epistemic contextualist also take knowledge attribution to, whether always to a standards parameter supplied by contextualists. Notice that for the contextualist, is a two position under the broad description of Metaepistemological relativism, the explicitly relational kind of relativism, vocation, attributed to Rorty, and the semantically motivated new age relativism about knowledge attribution defended by Macfarlane are strikingly different. Each appeals to distinctive kinds of consideration and is subject to distinctive kinds of criticism. The latter appeals to patterns of our use of knows in the service of defending truth conditions for knowledge ascriptions. As such, it is a semantic characterizations of epistemology. One thriving question in what is epistemology about? What questions are genuine epistemological questions? This section will discuss two dimensions to the subject matter question which have generated recent interest. Epistemologists are interested, for one thing, in epistemic justification, understanding, rationality, and their associated norms. Is epistemology about all of these things? And if so, is there a way to characterize epistemology? On a distinction within epistemology, very broadly construed, which offers a solution to this question is to distinguish between two distinct but complementary ideas. To get a sense of this distinction, consider how we might evaluate a natural shot aimed at the target. Even if this target or a poor target to have initially chosen as the object of one's archery. In this respect, the success, competence, and aptness of a shot, as well as its full aptness, can all be appreciated as shadowed off from many considerations, which speak well or poorly of the archer, had concern how the archer came to select that particular shot, and how else she has conducted herself in doing so. Some of the wisdom of shot selection is itself nosological, as when it bears importantly on whether the risk of failure is too high, the assured reliability sufficient. After all, these will bear on whether the shot will be not only apt but also fully apt, at not only its accuracy. Even so, we do care about we say rather than foolish shot selection in evaluating archery more holistically, where we import considerations that go beyond a focus on accuracy or aptness. We might admire an archer for choosing well. From a practical point of view, what targets to attempt on which to forbear from attempting, and for her resilience in continuing to pursue our aim, despite obstacle. Whereas our evaluation of the inquirer's constitutive attempts at knowing these, her intellectual shots, are assessable as successful, competent, and apt. These are nosological or knowledge-related assessments. Our evaluations of how the inquirer conducts herself as an inquirer, or are some of these, are best understood as part of a different. Here, we should distinguish the constitutive attempt to answer the pertinent question, knowledge generally, and how that differs from the preliminary attempts to eventually answer the question, knowledge generally. Once one gives an assumed constitutive attempt to answer knowledge generally, that is no longer inquiry. Inquiry has a distinctive aim of its own, that of putting oneself in a position to constitutively make one. Once one is ready to answer, once one considers oneself to be in a position to make a proper such constitutive attempt, or one ceases inquiring, and one then gives honest answer, even if it is an answer that one gives to oneself in following internal. When you make a constitutive attempt to attain aptness on a question, whether P, and especially when you inquire in the endeavor to put yourself in a position to make such a constitutive attempt, nosological assessment can be of constitutive attempts to attain aptness or of endeavors to put oneself in a position to aptly make on a constitutive attempt by actually answering the question up. Either way, the assessment is theoretically constrained by the nosological aims of attaining aptness of correct truth. Practical value are mostly irrelevant to such assessment, whether it is assessment of inquiry or assignment of constitutive attempts to answer a question knowledge jamly. But this is not to rule out that practical value might still be relevant at deep global level. For example, they may still bear on the very norms and standards properly set by epistemic communities for when relish high enough to sustain long-term storage beyond the time when one can be expected to retain the operative reasons for the storing of that belief. While they do not matter for nosological assessment as such note, they are often important to intellectual ethic, viz. To the questions that one actually bothers to answer, even to those that one bothers to answer. However, the distinction helps us to avoid confronting different kinds of intellectual norms, while at the same time allowing these different kinds of norms of nosology and intellectual ethics to coexist within a wider picture of intellectual life. For Zagzebski, there can be no meaningful distinction between nosology and intellectual ethic, because our constitutive attempts at knowing are exercises of intellectual character virtues that themselves reflect our motivations and value as inquirer. For example, for Zagzebski, knowledge justi, gaining a true belief because of an intellectual virtue, which he construes as a deep and enduring, accurate intellectual excellence consisting of an admirable intellectual motive, disposition, and reliable success in reaching the truth because of the behavior to which that motive leads in the truth because of the behavior to. Whereas Sosa take constitutive attempts at knowing this, belief on judgments, to have aims internal to them, with inquiry itself best understood, a wider-kind activity within which we make this attempt. For Kelp, knowledge the constitutive aim of inquiry into specific questions. A. Whether Frege ever met Russell and understanding is the constitutive aim of inquiry into general phenomena. While Kelp then attempt to analyze either knowledge or understanding reductively, he offers non-reductive network analysis for both knowledge and understanding, which are meant to elucidate the nature of knowledge and understanding in terms of their place in inquiry. Like Sosa, Friedman distinguished between norms that govern believing and norms that govern ways of inquiring, the latter of which he termed how are zetetic norms relative to epistemic norms. Friedman's answer is that they are often in stark tension with one another, and in ways epistemologists have often overlooked. As she puts it, that some judgment or belief is, by our current measure, in impeccable epistemic standing, not a good guide to. According to Friedman, he thinks following just thought through calls for a revision to our standard epistemic norms, and perhaps even a significant one. The only alternative seems to involve insisting on a fairly radical separation of epistemology and a theory of inquiry. A meta-epistemological research question that had generated much discussion recently asks how we should understand the relationship between belief and credence within epistemology generally. Is either more fundamental to answering question of episteme. One trivial approach to resolving such questions is implied by those epistemologists who are eliminativist. The eliminativist positions are the minority non-eliminativists, who then duarium typically defend either that credence is a species of belief or can't be explained in terms of or otherwise reduced to belief, or that belief is a species of credence or can be explained in terms of otherwise reduced to credence. While it might be tempting to think that the belief first versus credence first debate is a proxy for a wider debate about whether the research agenda and questions of mainstream epistemology are more fundamental than those of formal epistemology. Although there is of course informal work in epistemology on coarse-grained attitude who, for one thing, This reader option space would invite us to ask whether, under the credence first slogan, we should think of cells B and D are more fundamental than working cells R and C, or rather, just that working cell D is more fundamental than working cell R. Likise, the reader option space invite us to consider whether, under the belief first slogan, we should think of cells R. Consider that the above picture, divided 4 ways, does not naturally make room for epistemological projects that combine coarse-grained and fine-grained attitude. That is, for Sosa, the quality of suspended judgment is sensitive to both E, the competence by which you are in your degrees of confidence with your corresponding degrees of epistemic probability, as well as E, the competence by which you judge or suspend within. Finally, our table expands even more when we make room for cases of mixed methodology, formal and informal, to subject matter that included combinations of coarse-grained, fine-grained, and mixed attitudes of interest. There's a complication provide a useful perspective to revisit the initial credence first versus belief first literature. It suggests exercising caution in moving too quickly from claims about whether credence or belief reduce to or are a species of the other to more worldwide-reaching conclusions about whether one or the other, or for that matter, the kinds of methods and projects ordinarily, or for that whether words. Methodology in epistemology. This section briefly surveys 4 methodological issues in epistemology, each of which raises a how do we know? The answer to the first might include both specific knowledge and answer to the real kind of question would look very different. Behind Tamo Benyalimto, Araino Toledo Actish here. This methodological question is vexed because it may seem as though we cannot begin to answer the first question without already having answered to the second. According to Roderick Chisholm, the problem of resolving this prima facie tension, the problem of the criterion, constitutes one of the most important and one of the most difficult of all the problems of philosophy. I am tempted to say that one has not begun to philosophize until one has faced this problem and has recognized how unappealing, in the end, each possible solution is. The Methodist make no such initial assumption that we have any knowledge at all, yet no assumption about what we know, and instead first answers the more general question about what the criteria are for knowing, and then only on this basis then, with reference to such criteria. Whereas a standard objection against the particularist is that she begs a question against the skeptic. The most standard objection against the Methodist starting point is not so easily, as Chisholm puts it, beginning at the Methodist with a broad generalization would leave us completely in the dark so far as concerns what reasons he may have for adopting this particular criterion rather than some other. The particularinum Methodism debate connects naturally to other wider issues of interest in epistemology. First, a thorough Methodist starting point, such at the starting point from Descartes and Hume, implies a foundationalist approach to the structure of justified belief and knowledge. Harry, Descartes and Hume opt for foundationalism by way of taking the particular Methodist starting point. Second, the particularity. Third, while the problem of the criterion in epistemology is typically formulated in connection with the project of analyzing knowledge, the philosophical problems associated with Methodism, or particularists, on which might be our proper starting point apply. Mutatis mutandis project in epistemology, the project including epistemic justification. Alternatively, from a meta-epistemological perspective, we may step back and ask what kind of thing we are doing when attempting to complete this schema. What I be being investigated? This point applied generally to analysis in epistemology. Though for illustrative purposes here, we will focus on the simple ethnostatical analysis. 도세안가게 in this project are investigating meaning. Of course, only I might do. And so the epistemologist might purport to investigate knowledge rather than merely meaning by meaning by means of a semantic analysis of so. At John McFarlane captured this idea. Even if we restrict ourselves to sincere knowledgeable informant, the most who can discern directly from their use of sentences are the conditions in which they find it reasonable to use such sentences to make an assertion. Unity are not the same as the truth condition. A second metaepistemological answer to the question of what one is doing when feeling. His answer will be a familiar one for those who view philosophy and so epistemology as centrally engaged in conceptual analysis. What are we investigating when inquiring about? Owing to Jackson filling in the ethnostatical, if a matter of investigating concepts paying the service of explicating a factory of knowledge by way of elucidating a concept. On a common thread of argument, Williamson, physicists who also complete English schema are not plausibly regarded as investigating words and concepts. By parity of reasoning, it is unclear why epistemologists or philosophers generally should be thought to be investigating rather than knowledge and concepts rather than knowledge, any more than physicists are investigating words and concepts. Is bring rule a third kind of analysis at Sosa puts it when analyzing knowledge. Here our focus is on an objective phenomenon that need be neither expression nor concept. Or focus is rather on a state of people host or an act that they perform. This is the phenomenon whose ontology we now wish to understand. What is the nature of such a state or act, and how is it grounded? In virtue of what is it actual when it is actual? A further metaepistemological question is, just as we may ask how semantic analysis should or metaphysical essay, or more a comprehensive discussion of the place and varieties of analysis in analytic philosophy more generally. Two notable examples where experimental resources have been taken to stand in prima facie tension with orthodox positions in epistemology concern knowledge section. Critique of contextualism had generally accepted this point about use pattern while challenging the reasoning from here to a contextualist semantic footnote. His paper generated debate about the philosophical import of these results and led to further related studies, which presented evidence that the Gettier intuition was present across four cultures speaking different languages: Brazil, India, Japan, and the USA. For example, experiments by Courasio et al. Elemental resolution epistemology raise metaepistemological question. Another related metaepistemological question of relevance here asks what the role of intuition is in epistemological theorizing. This bears relevance to the extent and to the third metaepistemological question, experimental research in epistemology encourage concern the comparative weight we should give to folk judgments about cassette.